from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people, the 2024 presidential campaign union time to return all US land back to their rightful owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast. Techno-communism will win.
One of those other glib sort of things that capitalist class technologists will say is they'll point to the obscenity of the capitalist marketplace as reason why something like a planned economy run by AI could never work. So they would say, well, look at the marketplace. AI is making complex things in capitalist style. Those things don't serve much function, or they're net negative, like just most AI technology just going towards or so much of AI technology going towards Western-led warfare, similar violence. That's but what about those? What about those institutions? Those aren't institutions. It's garbage. And this is not a new thing. This kind of bad faith argument about planned economies, the whole dismissal of what planned economies were able to accomplish in the 20th century is basically that same lie, because we was talking about famines in the era of the Great Depression, and this is something that mostly politically illiterate Westerners will hurl as a criticism of the USSR. How many people died in this famine? That was intentional, and which is, for one thing, you can look at the lifespan of Russians going up by many, many years in a short time. And other countries in the Soviet sphere of influence similarly affected. So you can't say that all of these people died. It's just completely false, because we know how many people there were. We know how many people there were the next year and the year after that. It's not that hard to figure out. But all of this is a lot of subterfuge, because this is the Pizza Hut argument of 1991, right? Millions of people are alive who would otherwise be dead. Tens of millions of people are alive who would otherwise be dead. And that's exactly what happened in the collapse of the Soviet Union. Millions of people are dead. You get a lot of people from Baltic countries and some Eastern European countries, who, particularly those who come into the Western conversation or move into the West, who say, communism is so bad, you were mean to my grandpa. No, your grandpa was a slave owner or something, right? There's people, I stopped hanging out in this one AI chat room because of precisely this kind of thing. Jesus, lost my train of thought. Yeah, the concern trolling about planned economies is mostly about ignoring the fact that lives were saved and countries were stabilized in all the ways that matter, and pointing to some kind of not even that appealing thing, the Pizza Hut. Gorbachev loves pizza. It's, it's disgusting. When you consider the human misery that is wrapped up in those kind of assumptions, the accepting of human misery. That's horrible. Shouldn't just because you don't know who those billion people are in the world that don't have what they need right now. And by some measures, it's a good deal more. You could argue that it's almost that many people in the West who don't have what they need. But by the most, um, by the most kind of horrible descriptions, never being stably housed, never having proper food or water, never having access to health care. This is an awful lot of people in the global South, and it takes a really monstrous kind of person, which is the European person, to to say that. But it doesn't take much, right? You say there's nothing I can do, but once you've I've said this before, once you've accepted that there's nothing you can do in 10 or 20 areas of this kind, relating to sustainability, relating to the building of necessary institutions saving lives in other ways. Once you say, "Oh, there's nothing I can do here, there's nothing I can do there, what am I going to do?" Um, you are a fascist sympathizer. You think that you're just being pragmatic, but there's nothing pragmatic about contributing to the demise of the planet um, and contributing to horrors, horrors, even if the planet wasn't in danger. We didn't have the consciousness of this in the early part of the 21st century, the 20th century, but we still had these other dynamics. Um, Europeans um, uh, brutalizing the rest of the world, and socialists, legitimate socialists, people who understand that socialism in any given state means the abolition of private wealth and the move toward communist revolution in real ways. People, you cannot say that democratic socialists are socialists and say that is the extent of your interest in socialism and call yourself a socialist. Um, and that bears repeating because there were some years in my life where I was that person, just not having read as much of this material as I should, not having or having been exposed to it some years before and having forgotten it, or having become that person who says, "What can I do?" So just living in Western decadence. um, and the um, uh, because this is bringing it back to the AI conversation. There's only three things that should really matter to you, and really the first one is sustainability. What can artificial and general intelligence do to enhance sustainability? And for any of these conversations, you should maybe disregard the idea of artificial and general intelligence, because what does being more human-like have to do with building a planned economy or more elegant systems? We should think of these as extensions of our networks of minds and our skills. Not think of something, the there's a Mechanical Turk, which probably sounds a little bit racist because it's a term of some hundreds of years ago. But the Mechanical Turk was a sideshow. It was used to just a little a little set of mechanical doodads and voice tricks and so forth that were used to entertain people. And that's basically what these conversations about um, um, about artificial general intelligence are. It's no more interesting than people standing around cooing at at animatronics. Um, and yeah, that's a gag from 400 years ago. You have not become more politically literate since, whatever you might think. Um, and so there's only three things that you should be too concerned about. Sustainability, because whatever the situation for workers, and whatever the situation for abolishing private wealth, if there's no human life on the planet, nobody's living their best life. So sustainability. And then the second, in my view, is the broad material uh, conditions. Institutions that support um, workers and revolutionary action to that end. So those are two. And then the third thing I think that should be focused on in all conversations about advancing technology is medical technology, which is arguably maybe an extension of the second thing. But um, I think that as we get to the point where there's not a billion people who live in utter misery, and there's not 3 billion other people who live in marginally poor conditions. You know, I don't live in utter misery, um, um, but the by Western standards, I would be impoverished and a person to be disregarded and stepped upon. um, but the um, the as that um, metric is improved for taking care of folks, um, which you should hope would happen, although um, fascist authoritarian power seems to be solidifying around um, advancing technology as much as anything. So, um, it's not a foregone conclusion that we are on that trajectory. Ultimately, I think if the species is not extinct, it is a foregone conclusion. But in your lifetime, not a foregone conclusion. It requires your work. Um, um, but as those things are improved upon, um, the idea that um, life should continue beyond this certain span of years would become the next logical thing. This baseline of material needs being met, when those are met universally, and people living beyond that, stands to reason that that's the next thing. So those are the three things that uh, people who are theorizing or applying advanced technology and advanced algorithms, a particular focus of this program, to in a roundabout way. Um, uh, those are the things that they should be focusing on, but they're not. They're just kind of talking. They're just kind of repeating headlines from the capitalist and Western fascist-run press, and contextualizing that in the context in a way that describes it in wildly interesting ways, just standing around cooing at the Mechanical Turk. I don't even think that recreating a human-like intelligence should be the goal. On this, I might tend to agree with, well, I don't want to say I agree with this, any one person or another, but the idea that more sophisticated algorithms should be applied and tied to more sophisticated human social networks, i.e., things like Neuralase technology and more advanced more advanced interfaces of that kind, using advanced interfaces to connect groups of people into a different kind of social entity with different abilities and different operational goals. You know, I said this on another show. Unfortunately, it looks like the first generations and things like that just going to be, like what we use something that you would kind of see teased in Avatar or something, just military guys being connected to do that, to be more efficient at killing. That's not a particularly utopian outcome. Um, but um, but I would I fail to see how this fixation. I would consider it a little bit like the AI nuclear winters. AI has been described as having been largely abandoned as a field for some years, um, more or less. Well, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it, but it's seen resurgences and even further AI winter since that term about AI was coined. Um, but um, um, but I would consider this kind of folly um, about fixating on making something that's human like, um, and ultimately um, this fascination with creating sentience. I'm afraid of this because I worry that um, what does having a lot of AIs that seem sentient and can claim their sentience, does that make other intelligent life um, um, more valuable? Does that move us closer to treating humans and animals better? I mean, maybe, but I mean, what are chatbots being used for now? They're being used in the way that like the Facebook, just being like um, the worst company ever, destabilizing governments. That's what chatbots are being used for now. So if you have, you know, if if you have sentient chatbots, what's the likelihood that they're not just a bunch of fascist droogs overwhelming everything everything in sight? Um, it seems low based on what's going on. You know, I see this push toward fast, not just merely bells and whistles of the mechanical Turk variety, but a crypto fascist kind of agenda being played out when you're talking about this fixation with um, 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 uh, AI sentience and things like this. And Marxists will always say this, right? Like Marxists will always say that um, if it's not done in service to improving uh, people's lives, then it's no good. But I think um, what Marxists generally fail to do, that I hope I can try to bring to conversation with, this whittling away that I described, um, is is really understand how important advancing technology is to a world revolution. So much so that if we as a species, and also if Marxists continue to ignore this, what will instead happen is the army of fascist droogs will chatbots, and that's the way things are going. The uh, you know the techno fascist West is winning, right? Um, but uh, you know the anti-Americanism was something that existed for a long, long time, because the United States has been doing dirty stuff to other countries since 1880s, or arguably a good deal longer, but it kind of devolves into a little longer. But but anyway, the this in particularly in South and Central America, the United States did a lot of bad things well before the 20th century, and um, aside from the many genocidal acts that were committed before the 20th century on this continent. So anti-Americanism was not a new thing, but it started to solidify in this media-driven world of television news and things as people became a little more culturally literate, and that took on more momentum in the post 9/11 world, and has since taken on more momentum as the United States should be doing what John F. Kennedy wanted to be doing. I mean, at the bare minimum, if the capitalist class and ruling elites were intelligent, as you believe them to be, they would be doing what John F. Kennedy wanted to do right now, because they're hugely outnumbered, and no number of trillions of dollars can really change that, and no number of cullings like unleashing bioweapons um, or other kinds of weapons around the world is going to change that either. It can muddy the issue and destabilize places and kill a lot of people, but um, you know, it doesn't change the fact that there is a potential for multipolar power, most notably China, and it doesn't change the fact that people know what Americans have done. 100 million people are dead in the last 150 years, not dead incidentally, but murdered by Americans. And why were these non-Americans murdered by Americans? A variety of reasons, but the most common thread there is anti-communism. The United States was invading a country to protect some particular sector of private wealth or other, or just in the after 1960, just in the name of being hateful, just in this broad anti-communist kind of reasoning, like not every military action was specifically protecting United Fruit or protecting British Petroleum. Some of them were just yeah, we got to kill the commies. And think about that. The people who were fighting for a humane economic system are the enemies. If you've ever entertained that idea, you are a fascist. If you've ever said, well, that's just the world, you are a fascist sympathizer. That is what it is to be a European American, European person. It is to be almost to a man, and quite a lot of women too, fascist sympathizer or worse. So the idea of advanced algorithms being used to create mechanisms for radical abundance, I find it a little bit of movie logic, because I've said this before. Don't read the book Fully Automated Luxury Communism. If you're interested in that idea, talk to me, and we'll write a book that's not filtered through neoliberal handlers. That book was written by a guy named Aaron Bastani while he was working at a pretty neoliberal friendly think tank in London. So yeah, and it's pretty obvious, right? Fully automated luxury communism. What are the advocates of fully automated luxury communism advocating for? They're advocating for capitalists to automate things, and then on that wonderful day, when the capitalists have automated enough stuff that you can then have a fully automated luxury communist lifestyle, then everything will be great. And when is that going to happen? Because capitalists have automated a lot of stuff already in the United States and the West, and life expectancy has gotten lower absent revolutionary socialist action. Life expectancy has gotten lower, and inequality and instability in economic areas has gotten worse. So when is it that techno-fascists are going to change the way that they behave fundamentally and stop doing this sort of thing? The answer is never, um, unless the Western left and the global left, communists, become much better organized and much better educated on this set of things and make that happen. And so the tech people who call themselves communists, for the most part, yeah, they are not well informed, or they are just bad actors. I don't know. I don't know Aaron Bastani personally. If I met him, I probably would resist the urge to just throw a drink in his face or something. But it certainly seems like he could be, um, you know, not maybe not the Marxist that he claims to be. And a lot of times this happens. This Zizek guy was the preeminent Marxist thinker of decades following the collapse of the Soviet Union. He's not a Marxist at all. you know, the people that have Noam Chomsky in the West, who's written an awful lot about how he's been excluded from a public discourse, but his access is much higher than other Marxists because he's not a Marxist. He doesn't support revolutionary action. There's 100 examples of him supporting some garbage capitalist class thing or other. And But anyway, it was something. One thing. My New Year's resolution was not to call people out by name, um, and be. But it's very hard to do. But in conclusion, I will certainly call back this idea of what needs to be done to build planned economies around advanced algorithms, and why the capitalists who claim to be moving us in that direction will never actually move us sufficiently in that direction, um, to this situation of 1 billion or 3 billion people living in misery could have been done away with by 1940 or something. In that world, in that kind of world where Lenin's world revolution was not stymied by elitists and militarists, and so uh, we're 80 years off course already. Um, so they can keep stalling maybe for another 80 years or something. That's what even the very best thinkers and writers in tech circles are more or less all advocating for. I don't see anybody that's too much better in this than Aaron Bastani, or they're mostly worse than that. They're Ray Kurzweil, or they're Peter Thiel. They're really Peter Thiel. I mean, um, that's that's a bad thing to be. That's the most defining feature of tech bros, tech people, is has become just being unable to resist techno-fascist influence or willing participant. Um, and so I sometimes like to, in the interest of revolutionary optimism, share some ideas that are a little spooky, and but just in a way that I don't feel bad about trying to kind of frighten people or confuse them even a little bit. It's people who are not the lumpen proletariat. If you can't communicate with them, they should be terrified. The one of that's um, uh, people who are actively resisting improving their understanding of the world around them in service to elitist institutions. You know, if you are unable to reach them, yeah, you should fuck with them. That's the best that they can hope for is one of those two outcomes. Because I mean, if we're being serious, you know, what should really happen to people who are helping to kill the planet? If you want to save the planet, what do you think should really happen to those people? You know. So just being a little bit canceled or dressed down or something, or rather, those people who are resistant to genuine education. Um, yeah, that's getting off light, in my view. These spooky things that I'm sharing, most for the most part, have this Roko's basilisk kind of theme. So Roko's basilisk is a thought experiment wherein an artificial intelligence institution or one particular artificial intelligence has grown to such a degree that it is has a tremendous amount of power and knowledge, enough that you could say it's effectively, in certain features, all knowing. And so and it's not that difficult to imagine a world where advanced algorithms know human beings uh, this well, to say know what happened, everything that they've done and thought, because how much do these things kind of already know about you now? And this is 2023. And when you're seeing things like real moves toward artificial general intelligence, you should be thinking that, yeah, these things are pretty close to being able to um, retroactively figure out an awful lot of stuff. So um, the well, you know what? I'll just read one of my dumb memes. Um, the year is 2064. AI is so powerful, knows everything you've ever done. It knows you could have fought for a safer, better AI powered world, but sided with the capitalists who are killing the planet instead. The book of names is already being written. And when the day of reckoning, AI Day, and when the day of reckoning comes, you must be sure that your name is on the right side of that ledger. You must fight for what is right. Fight for techno-communism. You want AI to be your friend, right? So this is a Marxist spin on a thought experiment called Roko's Basilisk, which generally was posited without so much of a focus on abolishing private wealth or doing justice to sustainability or a humane economic system. But even so, tech nerds were often terrified of Roko's basilisk concept, and I think that is basically just them feeling guilty, right? Um, a Marxist computer scientist wouldn't worry that they would be punished by this set of advanced systems run by a lot of more social, socially conscious people, because they're not capitalists helping to kill the planet and helping to hurt people. So the only people that are scared of Rocco's basilisk are capitalist pigs, and they should be. If that's the worst thing that happens to them is being a little bit scared by a campfire tale, they got off light. Um, and So I share these memes. Sometimes Marxists see it and say, you're just freaking people out. I don't care. I'll leave you with this final framing from another of my infographics, and I'll also put this one up as I'm reading it. The artificial intelligence singularity, a technological tipping point with revolutionary significance, is near. Capitalists know this and have worked tirelessly for years to dominate all such advanced technology. Did a show on that. Probably do 10 more. To slow its benefits and uses, and to pervert that otherwise revolutionary outcome into a neo-reactionary set of institutions, a set of evils unlike anything the world has ever seen. All of this is done to prevent the abolition of private wealth that follows true revolution. But you, being the smarter person than that, must embrace advanced technology by instead demanding techno-communism. And we must drive a stake into the heart of this neo-reactionary beast, the United States. The United States is at the center of all of these things. It's history's most successful fascist country, worse than Nazi Germany. And that's why you should vote for me, Ben Zion, America's last president, because on day one, I will dismantle the United States by an executive order. That's not something that can happen in one day, but it's something that can be started on day one. And placing it once again under its rightful and sustainable indigenous stewardship. That's why I'm running for president of the United States. And that's why one day I will be president of the United States. Because none of this is that hard to figure out. It's all a matter of time. Thank you for your time.